This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Liverpool blink first in the title race, but Luis Diaz continues his fine form. Luton and Everton win as the relegation battle hots up, but whose fixtures look the best going forwards? And who are the big winners going to be in Gameweek 33? Hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a podcast all about Draft FPL. I am Dom Crofts, I hope you are well, and today we take a look back at everything that has happened in Gameweek 32, and we have waiver suggestions ahead of Gameweek 33 as draft title races hot up all over the world. A reminder of the results from Gameweek 32, and it all began on Saturday lunchtime with Crystal Palace taking on Manchester City. It finished Palace 2, Manchester City 4. KDB the hero in this one, 2 goals and maximum bonus points for him. Erling Haaland and Rico Lewis also on target for City, but Mateta kept his good run of form going with another goal for the Eagles. Then in the 3 o'clock kickoffs, a thriller at Villa. Aston Villa 3, Brentford 3, Ollie Watkins scoring twice for Villa, but 2 Sergio Reguilon assists helped Brentford earn a draw. Brian Mbeumo scoring in his first start back since injury as well in that one. It finished Everton 1, Burnley 0. We recommended him last week and DCL returned with the winner in the battle at the bottom. Some were bigging up Dara O'Shea as a draft option, but he was sent off in this one for the Clarets and ended the game week with -1 points. At Craven Cottage on the beach, Fulham lost again 1-0 at home to Newcastle. A late goal from Bruno Guimaraes winning the game for the Toon Army. Fulham have got their beach towels and they are draped in them. Luton 2, Bournemouth 1, 2 late goals for Luton turning the game on its head at Kenilworth Road. Carlton Morris scoring the winner for his 9th of the season. It finished Wolves 1, West Ham 2 at Molineux. A big 3 points for the Hammers. Lucas Paquetá and James Ward-Prowse back from the dead and scoring for West Ham. Pablo Sarabia scoring for Wolves, but another assist for Ait Nouri as well, who is the man of the moment at Molineux. And then at the Amex, a hugely impressive performance from Arsenal in the late kickoff on Saturday. Kai Havertz the hero with a goal and an assist. Brighton had not lost at home since August, but they were well beaten by the Gunners. Arsenal had an XG of 3.23, the highest Brighton have faced since Roberto De Zerbi took charge of the Seagulls. And then on Sunday at Old Trafford, Manchester United 2, Liverpool 2. Luis Diaz scoring a game for Liverpool. He's got 9 returns in his last 10 matches now, but United denting their arch-rivals' title hopes by earning a draw thanks to goals from Bruno Fernandes and Kobe Mainoo. Sheffield United 2, Chelsea 2 at Bramall Lane. Chelsea just cannot keep clean sheets. They conceded another 2 goals here. Noni Madueke thought he'd won it for Chelsea after some terrible goalkeeping from Gerbic. Cole Palmer got another assist, as did Gustavo Hamer for Sheffield United, but Ollie McBurney rescued a point for the Blades with his 3rd return in as many games. And it finished Spurs 3, Nottingham Forest 1 in the last game of the weekend. Chris Wood continued his fine run of form with another goal, and Mickey van der Ven was among the scorers for Spurs, but not from a set piece, as we suggested last week, but with a great drive from just outside the box. Nevertheless, if you got him in, we are taking that as a win. So there is lots to talk about, and let's get started with Gameweek 23's winners and losers.
The FPL Draft Zone, winners and losers.
Our first winner this week is Ollie Watkins. 2 goals against his old club in his return to the Villa starting 11 after injury, a 13-point return. He remains the highest point scorer in the whole game with 201 points now. To put that into perspective, Erling Haaland has 164. And if Aston Villa are going to make it to the promised land of the Champions League this season, it's Ollie Watkins who is going to be the man to guide them there. A reminder that across draft leagues across the globe, Watkins was drafted 12th on average, behind the likes of Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. But next season will be a different story. Watkins will be right up there as one of the first picks on draft night 2024, and deservedly so. And another player whose draft position is likely to increase hugely next season is Kai Havertz. He scored a goal and got an assist in Arsenal's win over Brighton, 14 more points this week against the Seagulls. He's got 9 goals and 7 assists right now in his first season at the Emirates, his best tally ever in the Premier League. He has 10 returns in his last 7 games, and I cannot think of a better player right now in terms of form than Kai Havertz. What I find so frustrating about Kai Havertz is that he did not show this form earlier in the season. I picked him up on draft night. I believed in him from day one. I held on to him for more than 20 weeks, and then I binned him off for Simon Adingra because he scored twice in a cup final in Africa. I know we all make mistakes, but that is the biggest balls up I have made all season, and Kai Havertz has punished me every single week. Carlton Morris is another hero this week. A massive result for Luton this weekend when they beat Bournemouth at Kenilworth Road. Morris was Luton's top scorer in the Championship, and he has had an excellent first season in the top flight. 9 goals and 6 assists for him this season now. Only 4 strikers have more points than him during the course of this campaign, and I think most neutrals would love to see Luton stay up, and if they do, Carlton Morris will have a huge part to play, especially with home games to come against Brentford, Everton and Fulham. You would not rule out a few more magical moments from Morris and the Hatters in those games. As for this week's losers, it's on the beach Fulham again, who failed to convince once more. I think it is now official. They are on the beach and their assets should be avoided at all costs. Newcastle hadn't kept a clean sheet away from home since Gameweek 6 before this one, when they beat Sheffield United 8-0 at Bramall Lane, but they managed one at Craven Cottage. It could, of course, have been a different story. To be fair to Fulham, they finished with an XG of 1.75. Newcastle finished with 0.93, but they have now lost 2 games on the spin, and they have just 1 win in their last 5 games against Spurs. So if you're following Fulham and you're placing your faith in Fulham to win you a draft title, may I suggest you do not do that anymore. Other losers this week: Burnley, who did next to nothing against Everton. Dara O'Shea was sent off in that one. A few people have been bigging him up this week as a possible pickup, but not here. Ultimately, he plays in a Burnley team that just aren't good enough at this level, and a red card against Everton should be a red flag to anyone thinking of bringing him or any other Burnley defender in the near future. It's Brighton at home next for them. I can't see them keeping a clean sheet there. And then it's Sheffield United away. This team, I'm afraid, are doomed, and their defenders should not be touched with a barge pole, not even if that barge pole belongs to somebody else. And another loser today, anyone that owns Cunha, who failed to start again this week and then came off the bench in Wolves' defeat to West Ham with 35 minutes to play, finished with an XG of 0.01 and ended the match with no points after picking up a booking. And Liverpool defenders deserve a mention too, who, outside of Virgil van Dijk, cannot be trusted to start on a regular basis and therefore cannot be a serious consideration for your draft team or anyone else's. But we'll get onto them a little bit later. So that's some of the good and some of the bad from Game Week 32. But who was the best of the best? Who was the star of the show? Who was the king of the hill? Is that a saying or a TV show? I'm not sure. It's time to reveal our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the Week.
And this week's hero is, of course, Kevin De Bruyne, who responded to being rested against Aston Villa with an 18-point return against Crystal Palace. 2 goals and an assist, a masterclass of a performance from him. And draft managers who stuck with him through that long injury layoff and then must have been massively frustrated to see him dropped against Aston Villa finally got their rewards in Game Week 32. De Bruyne is not playing regularly enough for the liking of those that own him, but when he does play, boy, oh boy, does he get points. In his 9 appearances since returning from injury, KDB has averaged 6.2 points per game. And the question now is, will he play in the Champions League against Real Madrid? Because if he doesn't, he will surely start against Luton at the Etihad in Game Week 33. And considering the number of chances they give up, there's a very good chance he will get another very big haul. Congrats if you own KDB, commiserations if your Game Week rival did. The Belgian Zidane is our fantasy hero of the week.
Hero of the Week.
Game Week 32 is over. It is done. It is finito. It has ended. And now we can all chill out for a bit, can't we? Because there is a full week before Game Week 33 kicks off on Saturday the 13th of April. We're going to take a look at those fixtures now, and it all starts with the lunchtime kickoff between Newcastle and Spurs at St James's Park. Newcastle kept a rare clean sheet against Fulham, but the Toon and Tottenham tend to concede more often than not. Newcastle have not lost at home since Manchester City beat them in Game Week 21. Spurs will be looking to win away from home for only the second time in their last 7. Brentford take on Sheffield United. They'll be looking to beat the Whipping Boys and extend their lead above the relegation zone to 7 points. Sheffield United, though, have shown some improvement of late, but as we all know, it is too little, too late. It's Burnley against Brighton. Burnley are another side that has shown signs of life, but whose fate is already sealed, sadly. Brighton were well beaten by Arsenal, and they need to improve on an away record that has seen them win just once in their last 9 trips away from the Amex. Manchester City take on Luton at the Etihad. City look like they mean business as we reach the business end of the season. Luton's survival hopes are unlikely to be decided by a trip to Manchester City, so this looks like the ultimate home banker. The toughest thing for draft managers will be trying to be on the right side of Pep Roulette. It's Nottingham Forest against Wolves at the City Ground. Forest will view this as a must-win game, and Wolves are out of sorts right now with just 1 win in their last 5. And then in the early evening kickoff, it's Bournemouth against Manchester United at the Vitality Stadium. Bournemouth will be looking to bounce back from that defeat to Luton. Manchester United will be hoping to win their first away game since Game Week 25. And then, on Sunday, it's Liverpool against Crystal Palace at Anfield. Manchester City destroyed Palace, absolutely humiliated them on their own patch. So Liverpool will expect to do the same at Anfield. Oliver Glasner will be hoping to get a first win for the Eagles since his first game in charge, that home win over Burnley in Game Week 26. Since then, it's not gone very well for the Austrian. It's West Ham against Fulham. West Ham are a side we're going to be talking about, mainly because they're playing Fulham, and it's Arsenal against Aston Villa. Aston Villa are on a bit of a slippery slope right now, results-wise, with only 1 win in their last 5. They've conceded 16 goals in that time as well. Arsenal, on the other hand, have conceded just once in their last 5 and have scored 13 in that time, most of which have either been scored or assisted by Kai Bloody Havertz. And then on Monday night, to finish the game week at Stamford Bridge, it's Chelsea against Everton. Chelsea continue to leak goals, but Everton continue to struggle to score goals. So expect a narrow 2-1 win for Chelsea, with both goals penalties from Cole Palmer. Right, that's our 10 fixtures for Game Week 33, but which players should we be looking at ahead of this week's waivers, and how much emphasis should we be placing on the upcoming double game week in Game Week 34? It's time for Waiver Wants.
The FPL Draft Zone. Waiver Wants.
As always, we're going to be looking for those players who might still be available in your draft league, so we're not going to be talking top-tier players here, as they will all be taken if your league is active. And first up, we're going to be looking at West Ham against Fulham. Fulham did have chances against Newcastle this week, but ultimately they still lost. They have lost 2 games and drawn in their last 3 games. They are conceding goals for fun, and they are coming up against a West Ham side who have a lot to play for and are in good form. They've lost only once in their last 7 games. Lucas Paquetá is still free in about 25% of 10-person draft leagues, according to data from Draft FC. He got an 8-point return at the weekend. He's got 2 goals and an assist in his last 5 games. It's likely to be his final hurrah for West Ham before joining Manchester City, but he is a player worth getting in if you have a space in your midfield. Another player who we have banged the drum for the last couple of weeks, and we will continue to bang the drum for, is Mikhail Antonio, who came off the bench and made the difference again this weekend. West Ham trailing at the break, winning at full time. He is still available in about 12% of draft leagues. Defensively, West Ham have not been great. They do tend to give up decent chances in almost every game, so their backline are a hard avoid for me. But if you can strengthen your side with any of their midfielders or strikers, then that is one to consider. It's Brentford against Sheffield United next weekend as well, and Sergio Reguilon was excellent against Aston Villa this weekend and is free in almost 80% of draft leagues. Brentford's run is about to get very nice indeed, with games against Luton, Everton and Fulham after Sheffield United, and Reguilon's attacking potential actually outweighs Brentford's dodgy defensive record. I will certainly be looking to bring him in this week. He's free in my league currently. And Sheffield United, to be fair, they've definitely shown some more fight of late as well. Gustavo Hamer did well again against Chelsea, got another assist. It was the fourth game in a row. He got a return. And after Brentford, Sheffield United are at home to Burnley. So if you need a midfielder and you're prepared to gamble on a Sheffield United asset that isn't Ben Brereton Diaz, Gustavo Hamer is the pick for you. Talking of Burnley, they take on Brighton this weekend, and I actually fancy Brighton to win this one pretty comfortably. Brighton's away form has been right ropey of late, but they did win 5-0 at Sheffield United earlier in the season, and I just think they're going to have way too much class and game intelligence for a team like Burnley. Given their horrible run of fixtures recently as well, there is a very good chance that a lot of Brighton's players will be available on your waivers, and I would not be afraid this week to get in a Brighton defender either. So the likes of Van Heck, Lewis Dunk, Tarek Lamptey are all worth thinking about. But Simon Adingra is the one for me. He is available in around 75% of 10-man leagues, according to data from Draft FC right now. And I think he would be a great pickup considering the opposition this week. A short-term pickup for sure, but a good one for this week only. And Julian Ciso was one of Brighton's better players against Arsenal, and he could be another midfield option as well. It's Manchester City against Luton at the Etihad, so keep an eye on news of Kyle Walker's injury status. If he is still out, Rico Lewis is in a great moment right now. He's picked up 16 points in his last 3 game weeks and was a scorer against Crystal Palace this weekend. Jack Grealish looked good as well. He provided the assist to the assister for KDB's second goal against Crystal Palace, and he has started and finished the last 2 game weeks. Obviously, City are up against Real Madrid in midweek, so keep an eye on the team that Pep picks for that. If Grealish is not in it from the start, I think he will get the nod against Luton, and Luton at home is what I would call a delicious fixture. Nottingham Forest, they've shown some real fight and desire of late, even though they lost to Spurs this weekend. Wolves are the opposition for them at the City Ground, and Wolves seem to be dropping like a stone. So Anthony Elanga should be back on all our radars. He got an assist against Spurs this weekend. His pace continues to make him a threat against pretty much every team he comes up against. Forest have Everton and Sheffield United in 2 of the next 3 games they face after Wolves. Granted, they also play Manchester City, but if Wood and Gibbs-White are no longer available, Elanga is probably your next best option. Callum Hudson-Odoi might have something to say about that as well, and is another route into their midfield. And Nico Williams is an attacking defensive option if you want to go there. Liverpool's game against an unimpressive Crystal Palace could see Harvey Elliott start. Elliott came off the bench and got his 5th assist of the season against Manchester United, winning the penalty which Mo Salah converted. He is really pushing for a place in that starting 11 right now. Liverpool are in European action again this week. If Elliott doesn't start in that one, I would fancy him to start against Crystal Palace instead. Meanwhile, Liverpool's defence is being heavily rotated right now, which I'll talk about in a bit, but for me, they are a hard avoid because their lineups are just too hard to call. In terms of teams doubling in Game Week 34, and we have to touch on Game Week 34, even though we have Game Week 33 ahead of us, a reminder of those sides that double: it's Wolves, it's Bournemouth, it's Crystal Palace, Everton, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Sheffield United. When you look at those teams and you look at this week's fixtures, I would look at Bournemouth assets ahead of most. They're at home to a leaky Manchester United in Game Week 33, and serial points flip-flopper Antoine Semenyo is due a return. But I'd also be quite tempted by Everton assets. They have Chelsea away next week, but then they have this home double against Nottingham Forest and Liverpool in game week 34. So some Everton defensive coverage may not be the worst idea. Mikalenko returned with an 8-pointer in the win over Burnley. And perennial recommendation, Dwight McNeil, might also be worth thinking about depending on your midfield setup. Crystal Palace's fixtures in game week 34 are good, but they play Liverpool away in game week 33, so don't go too early on them if you can avoid it. Arsenal and Liverpool assets would of course be great, but the only ones that will be available will be those that are at risk of rotation, which I am about to discuss. And we should also touch on Sheffield United, who despite being a bit rubbish, have now got some fight in them. And Gustavo Hamer, who we've already mentioned, as well as Ollie McBurney and Ben Brereton Diaz might all be decent punts depending on your squad setup, both for game week 33 and with game week 34 in mind. Now, one thing I have suffered from over the last few weeks, and a lesson I need to learn, and one that I want to share with you, is the importance of having players that are absolutely guaranteed to play. Because while variance and bad luck can affect us all, you have to do all you can to win your matchups, and I have messed up royally over the last 2 weeks. In game week 31, I finished with 50 points, which is a strong, solid return, but I lost. My opponent had Phil Foden, so obviously that gave him a huge advantage. 20-point return there straight away. But he also had Kurt Zouma, who hit double figures, and he had Callum Hudson-Odoi, who returned. I, on the other hand, started Cunha and Brian Mbeumo. I thought they would both get significant minutes. Neither of them did. Between them, they got me 2 points. I lost as a result. This week, I started Konate, Kivior, and Joe Gomez in my starting 11. All three of them were dropped by their club managers, and across my backline, I ended up with a total of 6 points, which cost me a gain. My opponent, on the other hand, had James Tarkowski, Jordan Pickford, and John McGinn. None of them top-level players at top clubs, but they are all steady eddies. They start week in, week out, and that is what made the difference. That regular start time, those regular minutes, and it paid dividends for them this week. As a result, I have nosed up my title chances. That title is gone now. It's gone. I cannot emphasise to you enough, therefore, that when you are setting your waivers this week and beyond this week until the end of the season, you're shaping that team for these final weeks. You've got to try your best to get in players who are going to play week in, week out. Do not risk it with squad players unless you think you can afford to play them, knowing they might only return 1 or 2 points off that bench. And the other thing to say, which I'm also guilty of, is even if you are holding players because they double in game week 34, if they are not playing regularly now, they will probably only play one of the 2 games in the double anyway, and then you have to ask yourself if they are really worth hanging on to. I have Joe Gomez, I have Konate, I have Cunha, and now I have Juan. And I need to think long and hard what to do with all of them because they are not getting the minutes right now. So that is another thing that I need to consider, and it's something that I think you need to consider as well when you are setting your waivers this week. Bring in players who will start and not players whose game time is a doubt, because this is crunch time now, and those selections that you make really could make or break you. It's game week 33 this week. It is not game week 34, so play the game week in front of you. That is my advice for this week. So, that is almost it for today. Game week 33 does start on Saturday the 13th of April at 11 a.m. The deadline for those waivers is 24 hours earlier on Friday the 12th of April at 11 a.m. So you've got a good amount of time this week to really think about those moves after the fast turnaround between game weeks of late. We will be back next week with a look back at all the matches from the weekend. And in the meantime, please do not forget to subscribe to us if you haven't done so already on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. And also, I know I've asked this before, but I'm going to ask one more time and then probably several more times over the next few weeks. If you could give us a review, it would be massively appreciated. It would make us more visible, and that would be neat. That's right, neat. Don't forget, we're also on social media at FPL Draft Zone on X and on Instagram. And until next time, good luck with all things draft, and bye for now.